an ambitious CEO for a company that creates companion robots, will do whatever it takes to convince investors and politicians to support the production and legalized distribution of the androids. One evening, Jess stares out of the window of the self-driving car as she arrives in Gamalore City. In the bustling metropolis, everything is for sale, and tourists are encouraged to indulge in their desires. Later, the woman steps out of the car and heads to an alley behind a building. There, she sees a courtesan talking to a man and telling her daughter to wait on the street while she does the deed with the customer. Jess approaches, takes off her dark sunglasses, and gives the girl a sympathetic look. As they wordlessly stare at each other, the woman remembers an angry mob protesting against courtesan androids. During a TV interview, Jess, who's the CEO of Paradise X, explains that her startup company produces robots that provide customers with otherworldly pleasures. One morning, the woman meets with the board members of the right-wing corporation, hoping to get them to invest in Paradise X. However, they reject the pitch because they only invest in companies that align with their moral values. Annoyed, Jess stares at the chairman seated at the end of the table who nervously wipes away his sweat with a handkerchief. A few days ago, the CEO secretly met with the man and allowed him to try out one of the courtesan androids, and he greatly enjoyed the experience. Hours later, at an airplane hangar, the chairman told Jess that the right-wing corporation would support her transformative innovation. Delighted with his answer, the woman revealed that she had one of her robots delivered to his home and said she hopes that he remembers her generosity during the upcoming pitch meeting. After the chairman drove off, a mysterious female figure appeared behind Jess and told her to be careful when dealing with men like him, because they'll say anything to get what they want. She added that the CEO should always try to get an agreement in writing. In the present, Jess crosses her arms and stares at the chairman, who shamefully avoids her gaze. During another TV interview, the woman points out that the US exports military robots and Germany exports medical robots, and explains that this gave her the idea to produce courtesan androids. The host mentions that her mother was a courtesan, so Jess states that a lot of her friends shared the same upbringing, and that she's proud of her mother's line of work. She adds that the lone parent worked hard to provide for her and give her a good education. Then, the man asks for her opinion on previous governments' failed attempts at legalizing the adult industry. So the CEO says she hopes her business convinces the public to be more open-minded when it comes to the complicated issue. The host wonders how she plans on competing against the Japanese models, so Jess explains that she and her team have gathered a decade's worth of data at the Paradise X Research Center. In the facility, the scientists considered every variable of customer satisfaction and used the data to construct a generative AI capable of learning and responding to the needs of the user. The CEO recruited middle-aged women who used to work as courtesans to provide insight into the process and to record their voices, which they'll then use for the robots. Then, the host asks if she's concerned her creations will take jobs away from human courtesans. So Jess says the androids are just like any other gadget that needs updates for new functions, tricks, and positions. The woman shares that she isn't taking jobs from the professionals because she employed these courtesans as trainers in the Paradise X facility. The CEO assures that the employees will earn more money and have all the benefits that the government won't provide. In the laboratory, Lady Susie trains a robot on how to perform an intimate act properly. Seconds later, Jess appears and applauds the employee for doing a good job on their latest creation, the Model 5. Then, the CEO asks her boyfriend Whit if he wants to test out the robot, and he affirms. The man undresses down to his boxers and sits on a stool on top of the pedestal. However, when the android begins touching him, his heart rate doesn't increase, prompting Lady Susie to instruct the technician to adjust the machine's actions. Jess moves the robot's hand onto her boyfriend's arm, and the monitor shows an increase in his heart rate. She tells the technician that the hand placement gives a more accurate reading of the user's vital signs. When the android continues grinding on Whit, the CEO sees the excited look on his face and jokingly asks if he wants to take it home with him. Then, Lady Susie says she'd like to show Jess a new trick that the robot can do. After the android performs an impressive pole dancing routine on the pedestal, everyone in the room erupts in applause. As a show-stopping finale, a small compartment opens between the robot's legs and shoots out multiple ping-pong balls into the air. One morning, Whit watches a news report on his phone of the Minister of Arts and Modern Lifestyles Control, Ms. Gemina, saying that she considers Paradise X's inventions as an insult to women. She adds that they're currently attempting to pass legislation that'll outlaw intimate acts between humans and androids. When the man notices his girlfriend behind him, he quickly turns it off and tells her that she shouldn't let the detractors get to her. So Jess states that she only created the robots as a substitute because selling intimacy for money is illegal in the country. Moments later, the CEO's secretary, Natasha, relays that even though the right-wing corporation declined the investment opportunity, the chairman said he'd like to keep the prototype as a souvenir, further annoying Jess. Then, the woman tells the secretary to recall the robots they sent to High Summit and T Prestige. Jess says she understands the pushback from the ministry, but she doesn't get why they keep getting rejected by private investors. Natasha points out that there's a 6-month waiting list on their Model 4, with pre-orders from customers all around the world. However, the CEO says there's no point going global if her own country can't have access to her products. The secretary informs her boss that she's been invited onto another talk show where she'll engage in a debate with Gemina. Even though Whit thinks it's a bad idea because they'll only use the platform to shame her, Jess agrees to appear on the TV show. The boyfriend tries to initiate intimacy to try and get the woman to relax, but she tells him to do the deed with a robot instead, and says he's only being sweet to her because he wants a new car. That night, while Whit sleeps soundly in bed, Jess stares at the painting on the wall and remembers how she used to kneel and pray as a child. In the US, Robert spends all his time at work and admits he's unlucky when it comes to dating. Because of women constantly rejecting him, he disconnects from the real world through VR experiences and adult toys. One day, the man receives an alert on his phone informing him that he's won a trip to Gamalore City, and he immediately boards a plane to the destination. During the televised debate, the CEO presents Paradise X's latest project, an adult entertainment complex called the Pleasure Oasis. Then, she shows the audience a commercial featuring the feedback they've received from the first batch of Pleasure Oasis customers. Ton, a man who claims that he's addicted to the endorphins released during lovemaking, says that only the Paradise X androids were able to satisfy his needs. Then, a male customer who's attracted to men says that, in the resort, he's able to explore his desires without being judged. A woman who has unique needs in the bedroom thanks Paradise X for allowing her to live out her fantasies. Lastly, Robert says the courtesan robots understand him better than human women, revealing that the trip he won in the contest included early access to the Pleasure Oasis. Jess explains that all she wants is societal change and to end the stigma when it comes to intimacy. However, Gemina counters that she's essentially opening a brothel, which is against the law. So, the CEO counters that if her company's creations are illegal, that means they'll also have to shut down every electrical appliance store in the country, implying that the androids are no different than other gadgets. Then, the minister points out that the robots could encourage violent tendencies and wonders if this might endanger women and children. Because she can't come up with a rebuttal, Jess maliciously brings up that Gemina's husband has tried out all of their models. Unfazed, the older woman says that she's dodging the topic, so the CEO mentions the multiple studies that have shown that her creations will lessen the cases of people taking advantage of others. However, Gemina isn't satisfied with her answer and says Jess has no sense of responsibility when it comes to the possible negative repercussions of giving the public access to the courtesan androids. That night, while the CEO swims in the pool, Whit makes love to a robot. During the deed, the man slaps the android, and he immediately apologizes and asks if it's okay. To his surprise, the robot encourages him to keep doing it, and he relishes the power he feels. After one hard strike, the android's face detaches from its head, but it just places it back on, and they continue doing the deed. Behind the glass partition, the technician toggles the controls using a tablet, revealing that he adjusted the robot's settings to enjoy physical lovemaking. Later that night, Jess stops by the construction site and watches the workers put up the neon sign outside the new building. Suddenly, she hears the protesters on the street, and despite her employees discouraging her from approaching the crowd, she insists on speaking to them. Members of the angry mob state that they didn't agree to the construction of the entertainment complex, and they believe the courtesan androids will bring the demise of human relationships and prevent babies from being conceived. The crowd refuses to listen to her and begins throwing objects over the barricade. Jess gets hit on the head, so she defeatedly raises her arms and awaits the rushing protesters. Fortunately, her bodyguards come to her aid and carry her away from the unruly mob. When she's finally safe inside the building, the woman stares at a pamphlet advertising the Pleasure Oasis. Then, she sees 5 clothless courtesan androids walking toward her, and the flesh falls off their mechanical frames. To her horror, the CEO sees her own hands disintegrating in the same manner, and she remembers a priest touching her shoulder as she prayed in front of an altar as a child. Suddenly, Jess wakes from the nightmare and asks Whit to comfort and hold her. For the next few days, the woman visits several businessmen and tries to bribe them with money and courtesan androids in hopes of securing a business license. One interested investor says she's insulting his honor by assuming that he'll agree to her terms in exchange for cash and a robot. He states that he's only interested in real women and orders Jess to sleep with him if she wants his help. Even though she doesn't want to do it, the desperate CEO follows all of the man's demeaning orders. Later, the woman answers a call from Natasha, who tells her that they still haven't secured a business license, revealing that sleeping with the despicable businessman was all for nothing. The secretary also informs the boss that Whit took all his clothes and belongings from the house and left. Years ago, while Jess did her homework in the living room, she opened the door for her mother, who let a customer inside the house. As the girl stood by the open doorway, she saw a boy smiling at her from across the street. While she returned to her homework, her mother entertained the customer on the other side of the room. In the present, Whit appears on a TV show and announces that he and the CEO recently broke up. When the host asks for the reason for the split, the man claims that Jess hasn't been herself lately, and she's become obsessed with work. He says that he didn't think they'd end up dating because he only messaged her on social media for a casual fling. Then, Whit reveals that all the robots that were sent to the businessmen and the politicians had hidden cameras on them, violating customer privacy. Jess watches the interview on TV, and she orders her legal team to get out of the room so she can be all alone. The entire afternoon, the CEO's phone buzzes from unanswered calls from the multiple powerful men who received an android. Soon, the woman faces the media to address her ex-boyfriend's allegations. She says that the company values privacy above all and insists that she'd never do anything that'll risk her losing everything that she's worked for. She assures all Paradise X customers that Whit's allegations are completely unfounded. When the reporters ask if she's planning on suing her ex-boyfriend for spreading lies, the CEO indifferently says that it isn't worth it. Eventually, she reaches out to the businessmen and politicians who've seemingly changed their minds. Then, the woman watches a press conference on TV of a politician stating that although what the CEO is proposing is outside the box, he acknowledges that they need to reform legislation regarding the adult industry. Natasha tells her boss that the businessman who previously rejected her fundraising proposal called back and said that he's ready to invest in Paradise X. That evening, Jess celebrates with Whit, revealing that his TV interview was an act to scare the businessmen and politicians into changing their minds. The woman thanks her boyfriend for participating in her plan, and they proceed to make love. Years ago, Jess talked to the boy, revealed to be Whit, which means they've known each other since they were kids. She asked her friend what he wanted to be when he grew up, and he said that he wanted to be a movie star. Whit asked Jess the same question, but she said that all that mattered to her was leaving the slums and never coming back. She told the boy to come with her, and he promised that no matter where they ended up, he'd always take care of her. In the present, the man slaps the woman during the deed, and he apologizes profusely as she runs out of the room. In the bathroom, Whit comforts his crying girlfriend and continues expressing remorse for what he did. 1 hour before the Pleasure Oasis launch event, the CEO sits in front of the mirror and covers up the bruise with makeup. Then, the mysterious female figure, revealed to be her mother, appears from behind and tells her to keep believing in herself. Years ago, the mother allowed a customer to take advantage of Jess, and the girl's expression implies that it was a common occurrence. In the present, the woman tells her daughter how proud she is of all the work she's done. Years ago, the dying mother apologized to Jess for all the horrible things she allowed to happen. She told her daughter to focus on her studies because it's the only way she'll escape the slums. In the present, the older woman is no longer standing in front of the CEO, revealing that she only imagined her mother since she died when she was a child. During the launch event, Jess presents the Prime 1 model, a fully customizable robot that meets any customer's needs using the Paradise X app. However, the innovation quickly backfires when the users create eccentric modifications to the robot's designs. 2 months after the launch, activists petitioned the Justice Court to investigate the CEO, leading to the closure of the Pleasure Oasis and their business license revoked. Jess was fined and served 3 years in prison for infringing the nation's values. After her release, the woman founded another startup and launched new products that comply with its regulations. Drastically veering away from humanoid features, Jess created the Maid X, a commercially available helper robot designed to assist with household chores. Even though the newest creation is only meant to serve as a maid, the commercial tagline states that it can do anything the customer wants.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.